You know what the issue was, by the way, with my friggin' mixer?
No idea.
Don't curse. Is so because it's all MIDI and it's all software driven.
Yeah.
There was a parameter that says like initial track, and it was set to 11 instead of 0.
Oh, nice.
I've never changed that setting. Not once.
I like that it was set to 11 though.
It was turned up to 11. But seriously, folks, like when you have a template for the project files and you don't change the settings, and you also use this thing as a toy for not just podcasts but for the other BS stuff that I do on my own, pretending like I can sing. It's and that's all fine, and the podcasts are all fine, and then you open it up and you say, okay, well let's make another one, and then it just doesn't work. I don't get it. Nothing. And this computer, by the way, I don't want to mention anything about a vulnerability, but like I don't update this computer because it's a Hackintosh. Nothing changes. Nothing. It's frozen. It's frozen in whatever version of High Sierra it has, and I just can't. Like that ability, the ability for me to basically peel off a new podcast is extremely valuable to me, and I'm sure it is to other content creators. And the fact that you have a template, you have a device, the settings are exactly the same, they just don't keep working even though you don't change the settings, it boggles my mind. It's not like some analog mechanic machine, that just like eventually, like your car, it will eventually stop working for a variety of reasons, but there's a ton of moving parts. This is software.
Well, software has thought moving parts though. It's like it's super easy.
This is not that intelligent. I got the and this is a Behringer Chinese low-cost fake digital mixer. This is not at all, if you walked into any real recording studio or anybody that's, let's say, a successful podcaster, they wouldn't have this. They'd have a real MIDI control surface. But I don't know what it is. Because it's all stored. It's not even like it's stored on the device. It's all stored in Logic on my computer. Logic, the program, on my computer.
Not the wrapper. Not Logic. It's not stored. You didn't store it in Bobby Logic, the wrapper. I don't think you did.
No, I didn't. And I wish I had a reference for that, but I really don't because I'm too white. Anyway, so we were talking about... How did we get on to talking about guitars? I can't remember.
Well... Oh, we were talking about
how did we segue from this?
It was choice and microphones.
So you finally got a new microphone.
Yeah, finally got one that actually has low background noise as a default.
It's not just that it has low background noise, is that it has a very even kind of tone to your voice, and it's not that extremely sensitive and heavily wavering sound of a condenser mic.
Yeah, when you get too close to a condenser mic, the S's are crazy. The sibilance is out of control.
It's the proximity effect is much more amplified on those types of microphones, but you can definitely use that to your advantage. It's not for radio, though. If you notice, radio shows and now successful podcasts, they either have the SM7B, which is what I use, but not for that reason. It's because when I'm on a cardioid mic, my voice sounds like half an octave higher. So the SM7B adds a little bit more, let's say, balls to my voice, which really, really kind of helps. Because you don't want to listen to me just talking like this for an hour. You know what I'm saying?
Which I suppose is why they used. That's probably why they used it for Michael Jackson. Yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah, but the other one is the mic that I told you to look at, which is the Electrovox RE20, which is the Stevie Wonder mic, and I do really like that microphone, and it has a built-in pop screen. And if you've ever seen, sorry,
I don't even think I've seen that microphone. I don't have a visual reference for that mic. I was just going to say, if you've
ever seen, it's actually a very standard broadcast radio mic. They're gray. And they have the slits on the side, but they're not side address. They're only front address. If you've ever seen, like, Howard on, that E! show he used to have or whatever they filmed his radio show of doing, the guests would always have that RE20 mic, and it's because it has a very consistent level. It has virtually no proximity effect, and it has something called, and this is not a euphemism, it might be the reason why Howard picked it up, dynamic D. Or heavy D, and it's a switch. It's a toggle on the bottom of the microphone that amplifies the internal bass response of whatever the signal is, and it's not necessarily. I guess it's like an inline filter, an in-series filter, but it's not necessarily. It's not like another device.
So what's up with the screen on the side? What's the point of that screen on the side? Does it do anything, or
maybe it just ventilates air out to make it easier on the diaphragm? It's similar to the SM7B in that it's a large diaphragm dynamic microphone that has virtually no proximity effect and a very even tone, which is part of the reason why a lot of broadcast radio outlets, studios have them. And they also allow just anyone who gets, on the mic and they get really close, they just kind of sound more important than they really are.
Yeah.
And, I don't have, one of my friends has that actually, my friend Deluch, who has an actually successful podcast. I've been on that a couple times, and he's been on Pull Request once. He let me borrow an extra mic of his, and I used it for a week, and it was great. I really would love it. It's a little bit more expensive than the SM7B, but I don't really have a reason to buy it right now because I've got this guy. So, but longer story short, so we were talking about microphones, and then that segued into the reason why I have the SM7B is like the same reason why I don't have a Gibson SG, even though that's a very standard type of guitar to have for someone who's been a hobbyist for over a decade, which is, a Gibson SG is a really good guitar, and I love the way it plays, but it's very mainstream, and it's just kind of bog standard at this point. It's not the 70s, we're not Jimmy Page.
So I actually went the other way on guitars. So because we were both,
wait, hold on. So let me bring it around to make my point, which I've been working on as a podcasting skill, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Which is that the reason why I have the SM7B, or did I mention this already? It adds more balls to my voice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more nuanced than just it's the bog standard semi-professional podcast microphone. It's the fact that it really helps the dynamics of my voice. For radio, for talking. And in fact, I have the mic I used to use, which is a condenser mic. I still use that if I'm doing vocals for not talking. But this really does help. And I've noticed there's a big difference. Like I sound younger on a condenser microphone than I do on the dynamic mics. But the thing is that, when you're listening to me talk, like I said, you don't want to hear some teenager talk, even though I'm over 30.
I have a microphone I missed that I got rid of. It wasn't even that expensive, but it was.
My cardioid isn't that, or my condenser isn't that expensive. It's an Audio Technica. It was like $220.
Yeah. I had a Sterling ST55, and I recorded a few things on that. And I remember that microphone sounding amazing. And then I was like moving or something, and I sold it, and I've recorded other things since, but I still miss how that microphone sounded. Probably shouldn't have gotten rid of that microphone.
Yeah. You know what microphone I really miss from my childhood?
What you got?
The Packard Bell microphone that came with our Packard Bell PC in 1996.
You mean like the one that looks like it's for taking fast food orders?
Yeah, exactly. And it was like this white thing that came on very thin, that came on a stand.
Yeah.
It came with, it was paired with the monitor that had speakers that you screwed onto the side.
Yeah, I can see that microphone in my head.
Those were the days. And what I used to do is drape it over the top of my desk and hang it upside down and pretend like I was a professional singer.
Nice.
Because I was like, the real people, that's how they sing, is from the mics that hang down.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be this, Yeah. Anyway, and, 20 years later, here's where we are.
Here we are.
Speaking of that, I've actually I watched the Blues Brothers 2000 for the first time last night, and I don't know if you've seen it. It is a horrible movie.
I think I saw the original Blues Brothers.
The original one is on my short list of favorite movies of all time. It is a effing fantastic movie. It really is. In every way, shape, and form. And that movie gets better, much like how In Rainbows got better when Radiohead released King of Limbs. The original Blues Brothers, while an already great movie, gets even better when you listen to the Blues Brothers 2000, because you realize that John Belushi actually added a lot more than just what Dan Aykroyd wrote for him you know, and it was his personality and his attitude that really helped elevate the film to much further beyond what the Blues Brothers 2000 film was, which used John Goodman, who ironically was trying to get over his Midwestern accent, which is, I don't know. Anyway,
I can imagine.
it also was one of those screwball 90s movies instead of like an art piece from the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, John Belushi's just a wild personality. It's like it's hard to imagine.
Well, I mean, Dan
else even
Aykroyd
simulating
and John
him.
Landis wrote the original Blues Brothers, and they wrote the sequel. From what I understand, if you want, I can go back into that Chicago accent. I don't know how that sounds over the phone, but from what I understand, they had a tiff with Universal, who, the studio, which are now owned by Comcast. And Universal said, we want this to be basically a kid's movie with music, not some adult film with music. And remember, the original Blues Brothers was rated R.
Yeah.
And the Blues Brothers 2000 is rated PG, so you can bring the whole family over to the theater and watch it. It was a horror.
That sounds terrible.
And it has so much like 90s cliche characters and plot in it. And it's what I loved. There was a lot of subtlety to the humor in the original Blues Brothers movie, especially at the time. Like, before all of the self-referential stuff became popular, which started in the 90s with Larry Sanders Show, Gary Shandling. So by the time that they made the Blues Brothers 2000, that stuff isn't good. They need, he needs to amp it up, and he didn't. He went the other direction. And like I said, Universal allegedly made a ton of demands that they decided to just adhere to so they can get the money for the film. And it was to their detriment, except for the musical acts. Because the musical acts were great. They had Aretha Franklin again, like she was in the first one, and she sang "Respect" instead of "Think." But it wasn't everybody sounded. They were just older, and you could tell they kind of had arthritis, and they were just, it's not like even Aretha. She wasn't as punchy as she was.
Wait. Did you do that as a joke or
what?
Aretha Franklin?
Maybe.
Did you know?
I was trying to see how long I could keep that going without you saying anything. Okay.
I blew over it the first time, and I'm just like, all right. And then the second time, I'm like, this is a thing.
Yeah. But the thing, her version of she did "Think" in the original Blues Brothers movie, and she did "Respect" in the Blues Brothers 2000. But the version of "Think" that she does in the 1979-1980 Blues Brothers movie is like, as they said at the Wolfpack show a couple weeks ago, 20% faster than the original. And "Respect" is not. And there's not that nice segue of like, they're in the very stereotypical but still highly effective musical segue where they have a leading scene and they say some word, they say a line that then leads into the song. You can't have to do like she wasn't. There was no way she was like that in the Blues Brothers 2000.
No. Yeah, they were in a restaurant in the original movie. I remember that scene.
Yeah, and she sold it to get a car dealership. So she's still married to Matt Guitar Murphy. Now, they tried their best to get everyone who was in the original movie and then all the people that they left out. So the original movie had, they said, like 6 or 7 musical acts, and the Blues Brothers 2000 had 18. And they had a bunch of people in it, despite being a really bad movie plot-wise and comedically. They had a bunch of really, really good musicians in it that I had honestly thought had passed away by 1998. Like Wilson Pickett and Billy Preston was there. Who else? There were a couple of other people that I didn't even realize. Like Sam Moore from Sam and Dave was in it. He was a preacher with James Brown, who they brought back from the original movie. But James Brown, he just, he sounded older and he was slower, and it's not the same. It's not the same, and the jokes were a little too on the nose. And like I said, they lost that subtlety.
A whole lot less cocaine fueled than he was in his younger days.
It's kind of funny because I read that as one of the criticisms. It's like, oh yeah, they left the cocaine humor for the family friendly humor, but as a hyperactive or as a hyperactive spaz, I never thought about the fact that they were on uppers during the entire movie. I was just like, oh, that's how they are, because that's how much energy I have. And
yeah, totally.
I didn't think about the fact
Totally
that they
normal.
were just kind of, and cut. I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But that's why I can't do that stuff. Anyway, all right. ¿Estamos listos para ir?
Yeah. Let's do like the actual episode.
This has been a Pneumonium production. The views and opinions expressed on Pull Request do not necessarily reflect those of Pneumonium LLC or its subsidiaries. Subsidiaries.